what the black man and woman needs to know about the nation, about the world, about themselves. Muhammad Speaks It. To order your 12-issue subscription to Muhammad Speaks newspaper, 313-371-7033. 313-371-7033. Kareem Bean Pie is the grand champion of all bean pies. The rich flavor and smooth texture takes this pie to a whole new level of delicious. One bite and you'll understand why people all over the country call daily to order Kareem Bean Pie. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033. Kareem Bean Pie.
This bean pie is delicious.
Muhammad Speaks presents Messenger Elijah Muhammad's Teachings by Minister Khalil Shabazz every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. at Muhammad's Temple of Islam, 12609 East McNichols Road in Detroit.
Brothers and sisters, we rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Soul Master's Day of Judgment in which we now live. The alone do we serve, and the alone seek for thine help and aid. O Allah, please guide us on the right path of those upon whom thou bestow thy favors, not on the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray after they heard thy teachings. Say he, Allah is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten, there is none like him. And I bear witness that none served to be served worth the praise besides Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is thy true servant and last apostle. Ameen. We'd like to acknowledge the brothers and sisters that extended us the greetings of Assalamu Alaikum. We have Brother Michael Shabazz from Tucson, Arizona. Mikhail. Brother Mikhail Shabazz from Tucson, Arizona. Brother Lawan Shaw of Richmond. Lawan Shaw of Richmond. Sister Latifa Allah in Hawaii, and her son Hakeem Allah in LA. Brother Stuart X of Texas. Brother Captain Hakeem and the believers in Richmond. I'd like to say in the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and in the name of his last and greatest messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'd like to greet the brothers and sisters with the Nation of Islam's greeting words of peace of Assalamu Alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Today we'd like to talk about Islam, the only true religion of God. We had another week of IUIC Dog and the Messenger, and it be so many that I can't keep up with all of them. I just say I'm going to just choose one, because what they do to keep, even when they don't have, they'll take an old video and repost it. Sometimes they give it a new title. Sometimes they'll put a piece of an old one in it just to consistently dog the messenger. This how they do. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard to keep up with because there's so many cities. It's so many different Israel. But this was the one that I chose to talk about this week. So this brother is talking about telling the black, because another thing that I notice a lot that they do, a lot of black people identify as Muslims because the teachings of the messenger is still strong among the black man. So you have a lot of black people who either identify as Muslims or they know something about Islam, and they still connect Islam to something righteous and something conscious and good for black people. So they constantly out there trying to tell the black man that Islam is not the religion for the black man, because if the messenger's teachings wasn't so strong, there would be no purpose to constantly talk about what he taught. But because what he taught is still strong among the black man, because the messenger said, he said, Islam is here to stay. So he was telling the black man that Muhammad started Islam through exploitation of the Jews' religion. Now, when we listen to these fakes, I want to talk about something that we learned when we learned how to do research in college. Another term that you learn is called researcher bias. Because the thing that you learn in college, when you learn how many fake authors and fake so-called scholars that's out in the world. Because even though flat earth is a dumb philosophy, it's a lot of people who believe that. Even though the earth has a circumference, even though they have pictures of the circular earth in space, even though airplanes, they say, when they fly to a country, they don't fly to the country in a straight line. They say they fly to the country in an oval. Because they said the earth is curved, and they don't just fly to the country, they fly in an oval shape. That's because the earth is round. But even as dumb as flat earth is, it's still people who believe. It's still authors that come out with books trying to support flat earth. So what you learn when you in college is you learn how to distinguish the true scholar from the fake scholar. So one of the things you learn is called researcher bias. It says researcher bias occurs when the researcher's beliefs or expectations influence the research design or data collection process. So this is an example of researcher's bias. This bus stop bishop in his, because after the messenger, everybody began to try to bring all these books to try to support their argument. Because the messenger is the one who taught us, check behind me. So he encouraged Muslims to do research. Go to the library. Go read other books. Go read mathematic books. Go read books on this. Just check behind what I say. So you would have Muslim ministers who would come with books, who would come with other documents to prove what the messenger taught. So now all the rest of these jealous niggas who jealous of the messenger find all of these biased authors that support their belief, then they come with all these books as if they teaching the black man the truth. So this is a book that Bus Stop Bishop used, and this title is called Arabs and Hamites, and in parentheses he has Africans, sold us into slavery. So he has a highlighted part in the book. It says slavery was due to raids of Arabs and Hamites on Negro communities. So they make a distinction between the Africans that's Hamites and Negroes. This is a map of Africa. They say that the Hamites live in North Africa. The Negroes live in Southern Africa. How in the world can you say these black people is Hamites, but these ones is Negroes? This bus stop now. Now let's go to a historian. John Henry Clark. He wrote the introduction to the book called African Civilization, written by John G. Jackson. And this is on page 6. He says it is incorrect to refer to them, he meaning the Egyptians. It is incorrect to refer to them or any other African people as Hamites. There is no such thing a Hamite people. This is another term that was imposed upon African history by Europeans who wanted to prove that everything good in African history was brought in from outside. The Hamites are supposed to be black white people. Western historians move the so-called Hamites around in Africa as they see fit in order to prove that the rest of Africa has no history worthy of its name. So that's a historian. He not a Christian. He not a Jew. He not a Muslim. He a historian. So he don't have a bias. He not trying to prove the Bible is true. But Bust-Stop Bishop is. The Bible talk about the Hamites like they evil and wicked. So this how Bust-Stop Bishop talk. We ain't Hamites. Because the Bible say that the Hamites supposed to be the evil and wicked black people. So he out there telling the black man that Hamites enslaved us with the Arabs. Now let's go on even further than that. Let's talk about what historians say about Islam. This is one of my favorite historians, Dr. Ivan Van Sertim. I like Ivan Van Sertim. He writes good books. He has a book, or his on YouTube, it has How the Moors Civilized Europe. In this video, he said in order for you to understand the Moors and their conquest, you must first understand Prophet Muhammad. So he said, when Muhammad is born among warring Arab tribes of the desert. Muhammad transcends the limitations, the blindness, the stupidities, the savageries of those warring tribes and brings to birth a religion, an idea, a concept, a vision of man that is unusual and has a tremendous appeal. This is what he says. A historian. He not a Christian. He not a Jew. He not a Muslim. So he don't have a bias. He not trying to prove that the Bible is right when it says that the Ishmael would be a wild man. That's what all of the Islam-hating white people use to say that Islam is a slave religion. They take the one verse out of the Bible where it said first they try to say that all of the Arabs is synonymous with Islam. So when they telling you about the slavery in Islam, they really just telling you about what Arabs did to black people. But when you listen to the historian, Ivan Van Sertim, he says you must separate Muslims from Arabs. Yes. You cannot blame the religion for the action of the Arabs. Right. Historian. He don't have a bias. He not a Christian. He not a Jew. He not a Muslim. He just a historian. And he said that Islam had a tremendous appeal. What does tremendous appeal mean? Tremendous appeal means something is very attractive or interesting. It says appeal means to be liked or pleasing to someone, or to be attractive or interesting. Tremendous means extremely impressive. This is what the historian says. But Bust-Stop Bishop says Islam was forced on the black man. What does it mean to force? Force on is a phrase, a phrasal verb that means to cause someone or something that is not wanted to be accepted by someone. it says force can also be used as a verb to mean to make someone do something that they do not want to do. So it's a huge difference between saying that Islam has a tremendous appeal and saying that Islam was forced on the black man. You have two opposing views. So if you're doing research and you reading all of these books, one person you read him talk about it because there is no way for a historian to see Prophet Muhammad. And Prophet Muhammad forced Islam on black people. He had the largest. You'd have just missed all of that to say that Islam had a tremendous appeal. To say that Prophet Muhammad was, he says, Muhammad transcends the limitations, the blindness, the stupidities, the savageries of these warring tribes and brings to birth a religion, a idea, a concept, a vision of man that is unusual and has a tremendous. He superseded all of the stuff that the other Arabs. That's obvious to a historian. But to a lying fake like bus stop, he gonna make Islam synonymous with Arabs. Because Arabs had slaves before Prophet Muhammad. And Arabs had slaves after. But that has nothing to do with Islam. And this is what a true historian or true researchers would tell you. Because they don't have a bias. They don't let their beliefs and expectations influence what they research. But when you got bus stop, this jealous nigga, this lying nigga, he let his lying beliefs influence what books he used, influence how he interpreted the history of Islam. But let's go on even further with Ivan Van Sertima. He says, what is it that attracted people to Islam? He said, one, they have doctrines of equality and brotherhood. He says they also encourage commerce. He says they encourage the idea of conquest. He said another thing which is very important. They did not, like the later Christians, they did not attempt to destroy the culture of other people in order to make them Muslims. He said Africans and Arabs invading Europe did not destroy European culture and yet brought something superior to it. Facts. Because every time they talk about Islam, when Islam conquered different countries, they try to make you have this one-sided view about conquest. Just because you conquer a people, that don't mean you enslave the people. You can conquer the people and introduce something to them that's superior to the culture they practicing, and they will accept it. Yes. The white man is the one. And this is another thing that I learned in college. When you talk about slavery, when you in middle school, you think it's only one type of slavery, and that's chattel slavery. The type of slavery that the white man forced on the black man. But when you go to college, you find out that all types of people had different forms of slavery. This is why the Bible and Holy Quran regulate slavery. Because it wasn't nothing inhumane. But let's go on even further with another historian. I cannot talk about history without talking about my main man, J. Rogers. This comes from his book called Sex and Race, Volume 1. It says race mixing under Islam. He says one fact about Islam stands glowingly forth through the centuries. It's almost total freedom from race and class prejudice. The opportunity it gave to every capable and aspiring follower regardless of color or social status, to rise to the highest possible rank. Slaves rose to be sultans, and slave women to be favorites of the ruler and mothers of heirs to the throne. At times, the slave himself became a master while still enslaved, and held freeborn men of wealth and power in dread of him. That's history. It's even history of slaves who had rose to sultan. And he said at times the slave himself became the master while still being enslaved. How many people had that kind of understanding of slavery? We think of the inhumane slavery of the white man because our professor, one of the ways he explained it to us, he said when you had an African who practiced slavery, they in with other Africans. They in a country with their own people. So how do they give them a slave name? If you in Kenya and everybody in Kenya is a Kenyan, how do you give him a slave name? How do you rob him of the knowledge of himself when he in Kenya? You can't do to a Kenyan what a white man can do to a Kenyan. But all cultures had slaves. They all had. Africans had slaves. Chinese had slaves. And this is one reason why also the Africans didn't understand the form of slavery that the white man tried to impose on the black man. We got to understand that. And this is also what you learn in college. They teach you how, yes, it was African kings who sold people into slavery. But they used to a slave system that's humane. Yes. They not used to lynchings. They not used to castrations. They not used to selling your babies to somebody foreign and they live in another state. They wasn't used to that. Because in Africa and other forms of slavery, you had those who were prisoners of war. They went into slavery. You had debt slavery. You had something like if a person worked, he was your slave. Just like how the Bible talks about bond men and bond women. You had people who you had authority over. If you had authority over this person, they were your slave. So in many parts of Africa, they had war slaves because they became slaves because of the wars they had. So you had tribes who war together. This tribe win over that one. So now they are prisoners of war. So now they are slaves. So now the white man come. He my slave because of the war, so I sell him to him. I'm not thinking he gonna castrate the man. This the stuff you learn in college. So J.A. Rogers, in his book, lets us know that a slave could have more power than a so-called free person. The so-called free person with wealth could be afraid of the slave. The slave could rule while still being enslaved. This is the type of stuff you learn when you start doing serious research, when you start looking at different scholars. But let's go on even further than that. J. Rogers has a section that says, of what race was Muhammad? It says Muhammad, the founder of Islam, was an Arab. What is an Arab? The Encyclopedia Britannica 11th edition, which is the 1910 through 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, says of Arabia's present inhabitants, Arabia has a considerable free black population, and there again by intermarriage with the whites around, have filled the land with a mulatto breed of every shade, till in the eastern and southern province especially, a white skin is almost an exception. In Arabia, no prejudice exists against Negro alliances, No social or political lines separate the African from the Arab. This was the encyclopedia from another historian. No bias. He not a Christian. He not a Jew. He not a Muslim. He a historian. So he don't have a bias. He just trying to tell you, look, this is what the encyclopedia said. But stop Bishop not going to do that. He not going to get the Encyclopedia Britannica that says that in Arabia ain't no racism among the people. They get along. He not going to tell because he has a bias. So J.A. Rogers goes on. He says there is every reason to believe that the above picture has been true of Arabia for the past several thousand years. Arabia is but an extension of Africa, where black people from the southwest and white, or nearly white people, from the northwest met to mingle their cultures and their blood. So he letting you know, just like the messenger. The messenger talked about how the white man came into the Holy Land for 6 months. He said that when a white man came into the Holy Land for 6 months, they caused trouble among the righteous. He said after 6 months, the king found out who was causing all the trouble. So he said they rounded up as many as they could find. But he said some of the black Arabs was hiding these white devils in their homes. So the king rounded up all he could find. And they marched them devils to the caves and hillsides of Europe. Yes, sir. So he taught us that in Arabia, that was the first case of race mixing. Bears witness to J.A. Rogers. And this is why also, when we look at, this comes from the April 26, 1963 Daily Independent Journal. It's called Black Muslims Lost Marion Court Fight. This article is talking about Muslims in prison. When Muslims in prison had to fight, and the messenger had to get lawyers for Islam to be accepted in the prison. But this article talks about what the Muslims actually wanted in this lawsuit. It says 46 black Muslim convicts at San Quentin prison who want out on grounds that they are deprived of freedom of religion lost their legal suit in Marion Supreme Court today. Judge N. Charles Broussardi denied their petition for right of habeas corpus today without comment. The right filed by Oakland attorney Daniel Wharton yesterday contends the black Muslims are denied a place of worship and a minister to direct their spiritual lives and growth. It says this appeal is the latest in a series of legal maneuvers by the black Muslims to have their cult recognized as a religion. They have filed action in both the state and federal courts and have lost. The Muslims argue that all other religious denominations, including the Mormons, are permitted to use prison facilities and have ministers conduct services. It says the black Muslims are seeking access to scriptures of their religion, Holy Quran, and to other publications like Muhammad Speaks, the Herald Dispatch, the San Francisco Sun Reporter, the historical writings of J.A. Rogers and E. Franklin Frazier, Black Bourgeoisie. This the messenger. Even the prison followers of the messenger was intelligent. They want to read. They don't want to just sit in prison and just waste time. They want to read newspapers. They want to read the Quran. And they specifically requesting J.A. Rogers. This is the one thing that all of these jealous niggas try to do against the messenger. Because we got to understand, just like people hated the messenger when he was alive, they still hate him while he's not alive. That's the one thing that I hate in this nation of Islam with this hypocrite Louis Eugene. We act like we have become so passive and so turned the other cheek that we don't fight for Islam. The same kind of people who hated the messenger when he was alive hate him now. That's why the messenger taught us. He said when one soldier falls, the next soldier is supposed to stand in his place and keep on firing until they shoot you down. That's what we ain't won the fight yet. So we supposed to continue to be fighting. We supposed to continue to be defending the messenger. Yes. Because he is the one who taught us about our history. You will find even brothers in prison. They want to be Muslims. But the white man did not accept Islam as a religion. So the messenger had to fight to get brothers lawyers going from the state to federal court. Just for brothers to be able to have, we forget about this stuff today. We just take everything for granted that the messenger did. We take for granted that we can just sell papers. We take for granted that when you go to prison, you can get Qurans. You can fast during the month of Ramadan. You can get newspapers. You can request no pork in your meals. We take all that for granted. We take for granted that we know we black. We take for granted that we know the black man is the original man. We take for granted that we know God came in person. We take all this for granted. But the messenger had to fight. Not only did he have to fight, he had to put his life on the line. Because I was listening to a clip that somebody shared of the messenger yesterday. The messenger was talking about how sometimes he would come to the microphone and he was so weak that his bones would be shaking. He said, but I got it to you, didn't he? He said, because my sacrifice, my life and my death is all for Allah. He said, that's the oath we take. And he said, Allah's gonna hold you to that oath. We take it for granted. We think Islam is a plaything. We'll just let this nigga lie on the messenger, act like we don't see this nigga, and think we not gonna be held accountable. Because in our lessons, in the problem book, the messenger taught us about how Allah put our problem in a mathematical terms.
Enjoying the show? Help keep us on the air. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033 to make a donation.
So in the problem book, it's problem 30 and 31. 30 talks about that lion in the cage that's been walking around this cage for 400 years. And he finally reaches the door. It says this lion has 17,000 keys. Then it talks about rusty locks. Then it asks us, how long will it take for this lion to use each key and turn it into rusty lock? Then problem number 31. It talks about this council. That 12 members of the wise, righteous scientists had a council at the root of civilization, or a conference at the root of civilization. They had a conference about the lost found nation in the wilderness of North America. Now at this conference, they saying it's only going to be 144,000 that's going to be saved. Because it said they will not accept or go to their own until they have a thorough knowledge of self. Yes, sir. So it talks about the messenger and his labors have been working hard for 3.5 years. It says their progress has been 25,000. Then it says, the messenger says, he wants all his students to help him solve the problem. Yes. Because it says that the conference members said that the old prophet said that it's only going to be 144,000. But it says the messenger and his labors don't agree with the old prophets. And this is why the messenger says he wants his students to help him work out this problem. Yeah. Because the messenger believes that he can get all the 17 million. That's the teachings of the messenger. All 17 million we supposed to be trying to get. But we take it for granted. It's more hypocrites than believers. We only Muslims on social media. None of us, very few Muslims are Muslims at heart. Because this is why I talk about bus stops so much. Because I remember, just like everybody else, I knew nothing about IUIC. Nothing about them. So I started seeing little videos of them. I wasn't paying them no mind. But the first time I saw this nigga talk against the messenger, I couldn't stop watching this nigga. I watch this nigga every day. I dream about this nigga. I wake up in my sleep saying this nigga name. My word is bond to Allah. I ain't got a drop of love in my heart for this nigga. The messenger said, when he talks about Allah destroying a nation, he said when Allah destroys nations, he said he is like a cancer that grows in your body. And you don't know it's there until it overtakes you. That's what the messenger said. That's what I want to be for this nigga. Yes. Not only do I want everybody who listen to me understand, I want to be that cancer for this nigga. I want to help that cancer grow in this nigga while he think we so insignificant. He think we ain't nothing but a few little nigga Muslims who love her. No, we that cancer that grows inside this nigga's body, and that nigga ain't gonna know until we overtake this nigga. I say that every week because I mean it in my soul. I want to get this nigga with Allah. I want to see the look on that nigga's face when we finally get our day. Because the messenger also said, he said in a message to the black man, he said Allah will allow the leaders of the opposition to try to carry out their plan they had against the message. He said, but Allah will cause them to about face. And he said everything they wished upon the messenger, Allah will reverse it and put it on them. Yes, sir. That's what I want to be for this nigga. I don't want to just get this nigga for what he trying to do. I want to get that nigga for the evil thought he had against the messenger. Yes, the stuff this nigga trying to do, but he ain't going to be able to do. I want to get this nigga for that too. I just want to make it plain. Because in this day, we got to draw that line in the sand. Messengers say it's only two camps: Islam and Christianity. That's right. That's what we got to start looking at, people. Muslims, non-Muslims, the same. It's only two camps: Islam, Christianity. Messenger taught us what Islam was. He said everything else is Christianity. He said, which one will survive the war of Armageddon? Yes, sir. Because the messenger didn't just teach us about physical wars. He also has articles talking about the war of words. This is the main thing that gets our people deceived. The war of words. You got niggas like Bus Stop that's called an all-out war of words against the messenger. Yes. But the messenger said, he said, Allah will call us to account for the oath we take. Because when we say our prayer, we constantly giving our oath. We constantly bearing witness to the fact there is no God but Allah. We make this oath. And the messenger said, just like with him, he said he would get up to the microphone. His bones would be shaking. But he would still get up there and teach us to. You think Allah ain't going to hold us accountable when his messenger risked his life and we up at the mic shaking? But he's still getting us the truth. We got to be out of our minds. Because the messenger, I believe it was in Savior's Day 1971. He was talking about all that he suffered. He said Allah can cause it to where I don't have to suffer nothing. But he said he causes me to suffer so that you won't have an excuse. He said I've been to jail just like you. I've been sick just like you. He said I've been on the run away from my family just like some, so you can have no excuse. This is what the messenger said. So this is why when I first heard this nigga, I couldn't stop watching him. Because I see the sacrifices that the messenger sacrificed. He sacrificed his life. We heard the messenger tell us about how he wanted to be a father to his children. Because the messenger was a... Now we look at Wallace as a no good hypocrite. We don't have no emotional connection to him. Especially us who never even saw him. But that was the messenger's son. Yes. A son that you love. You done raised him. You name him after the Savior. You watch him from a baby grow up to a grown man. I read that letter. I can't say that the man, because we don't know. But it's a letter that I believe that is from the messenger. But, hey, it's a letter that the messenger was writing to Wallace. You could tell the messenger loved Wallace. He hated that Wallace was going in the direction he was going. He was telling Wallace all he hoped for him. He was telling him all that Islam offers. He telling him about the great mistake that he making. Just like any father. When you see your children about to make a grave mistake, you do all you can to try to tell them, look, son, you making a mistake. I'm your father. I loved you. I raised you from a baby. I watched you grow. I see all that you can be, and just try to do it the right way. Yes. But Wallace didn't do it. Wallace would get out in the public and talk about his father like a dog. Yes, he did. Some of that stuff I heard Wallace say about the messenger. It'd be like, damn. He ain't even my father. I just love him because that's your father. Plus he the messenger and you talk about him like that. Right. Like a dog. He talked about, it was one, I forget where it was. I think Wallace was in Chicago, but it was like an hour-long radio interview. He was, like he didn't even know the messenger. Like the messenger was some man that they was telling him, this is father. So the messenger talked about how that made him feel. To listen to your son talk about, he said, I raised him. He ain't want for nothing. Yeah. Never did a hard day's work in his life. He said that's how they do. Yeah. He said, because he was saying how they had their feet under your table, eating your food. Then they just get up and leave for no reason at all. But the messenger said, when he first heard Wallace, he said how he was all but speechless. He said he got off his post, but he got back on his post. He said he got back on. Then once he got back on it, he said, I don't care if Wallace burned in hell, boiled in hell, or broiled in hell. That was the messenger. He was a human being like us all. He loved his children, loved his family. But he said, my life, my sacrifice, and my death is all for Allah. So the messenger taught us as believers. He said, hard trials are necessary to establish truth. Because the messenger said, when Allah loves you, he tries you. That's how you know Allah loves you, when he tries. He wants everybody to see. That's a follower of the message. We got to understand that. Because a lot of times we go through a lot of trials and we say, why me? But it says in the Holy Quran, it says some trials, what it say? Some people go through trials for others, or something to that effect. Some people go through trials just for other people to see what you go through as a believer and it gets strength from you. Think about all of these brothers and sisters like Sister Margie Hassan. Yes. Messengers say Sister Margie used to always be somewhere crying. Yes. Because the messenger was hard on her. That's right. But look how she overcame and stood out and shining like a believer. Allah put her through all of that so we can look at her and through our trials, we can see a believer. We can see a believer who loved a messenger like you love the messenger. I love one of the things I love about the messenger is them fighting brothers. And we gonna get back to the subject, bro. I'm just drifting a little bit. Me as a believer, I love looking at them fighting brothers. One of the fighting brothers that I love, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. He said Muslims are never the aggressor. He said Allah is not with the aggressor. Because the messenger had Muslims that would go step to the police. Not that the police all the time was bothering them, but they used to go step to the police. So you had this one incident in New Orleans. Followers of the message step to the police. So the brother in the article, it say, the brother told the devil, one of us gonna die today. I love reading that about that brother. Because that brother and them brothers did everything the messenger taught them to do. So the witnesses wanted to know, why didn't them brothers run? They was wondering, even in the face of death, these Muslims didn't run. That ain't usual for a black man. When you dealing with them, first they wasn't afraid. That's the first thing. Then the white man outnumbered them. Then the white man was armed. They still didn't run. Because that's what the messenger taught. Right. Messenger say, don't you never run from the enemy. He said, you call on Allah. He said, even if you have to die, he said, at least you won't die a cop. This is all that the last and greatest messenger taught us to do when it comes to fight. Even if it costs us our life. If we're a believer, that's a death that we'll love to die. Yes. The messenger said, don't die unless you die the death of a Muslim. That's right. That's the kind of death we all supposed to be looking forward to. Dying the death of a Muslim. Dying the death of a good Muslim follower of the message. Yes. Like he taught us to be. So let's get back to because I'll be drifting all day. So let's talk about, we talked about the brothers in prison. They was requesting J. Rogers. Then we had one of my favorite articles to read. This is from the June 10th, 1959 Pittsburgh Courier. It says 1600 hail writer J. Rogers at Muslims New York expedition. This is when J.A. Rogers came to a Muslim rally to give props to the messenger. Let's read what he says. He says, here in America, we have had plenty of leaders, but they have always been the wrong ones. They have selfishly preyed upon us for themselves. But at last we have found the right one in Mr. Muhammad. This J.A. Rogers. J.A. Rogers was on the scene from, I believe his first book was written in 1917. The messenger ain't know nothing about Islam in 1917. The messenger didn't come around until 20-some years later. But when J.A. Rogers talking about the messenger, he say, we done found. He didn't say, you Muslims have found. He said, we have found. That's why I like talking about the lost found. He didn't see himself as superior. He said, we have found for the first time the right leader. The leader who, he says, here in America, we have had plenty of leaders, but they have always been the wrong ones. They have selfishly preyed upon us for themselves. But at last, we have found the right one in Mr. Muhammad. He recognized Mr. Muhammad not trying to prey on us. He a good leader. He not a selfish leader. So at last, we have found the right leader in Mr. Muhammad. So he goes on to say, he says, the thing that impresses me most about Mr. Muhammad's young followers is they are so alive, alert, independent, and honest. Being a writer, many people come to me and take my books and never pay me for them. But Mr. Muhammad's followers get these books by the thousands and even pay for them in advance. Not only do they themselves want to learn, but they want to spread this knowledge to the rest of our people. Who did they learn that from? The messenger. Problem number 31 plainly says, the messenger wants his students or his laborers to help him solve this problem. The problem is the lost founds in the wilderness of North America. That's right. Has lost the knowledge of self. It's 17 million of them. We gave our messenger 17 million keys for 17 million rusty locks. It's going to take time to turn these rusty locks. So the messenger asked his laborers, help me to solve this problem. So when you became a follower of the messenger, not only did you want to learn, but you want other people to learn. Yes. That's what we need to know when we looking at niggas like Bus Stop. That's why I want to be a cancer for this nigga. When I look at this nigga, I see all the good that the messenger did. All the good. Ain't no man in America who has ever did as much good for the black man as the messenger. That's right. When you look at these other leaders, all of them changed. None of them stayed the same. When you look at the Panthers, they used to be in the civil rights movement, then they changed to be militant. When you look at Dr. King, he said one time, I'm tired of marching. He said, I feel like I'm leading my people into a burning house. Mm-hmm. He felt like what he was doing was wrong. Right. That hypocrite Malcolm Little. Once with the messenger, then he went on to the black national. But the messenger held the line. He held the line even with hypocrites. His son turned hypocrite. His grandson turned hypocrite. Assistant ministers turned hypocrite. It's hypocrites there that ain't even exposed as hypocrites yet, that he know all around. He said temple number 2 is honeycombed with hypocrites. But did you see the messenger stop doing anything for the black man? He still loved us. He still told brothers to sell papers. He still opened business. He still did all he could to try to make our burdens light. He always had some new program. He had want ads. He would tell the black man, if you need a job, go to your local mosque. He had apartment buildings. He had homes. He had supermarkets, restaurants, farmland, trucks, airplanes. He did all he could for the black man. He never stopped until death took him away. Yes, sir. And then one time I heard him say, he said, don't you think I owe you something? This is the messenger speaking to his followers. Because the messenger talked about how much he appreciated all the stuff his followers would give to him. He even said he appreciated that they is his followers. So he said, with all that you do for me, he said, don't you think I owe you something? All that the messenger did when we didn't know who he was. We didn't know who he was when he was on the run for 7 years. We didn't know who he was when he was in prison for 5. We only started recognizing the messenger when his teaching started benefiting our individual life. But he still said, even though you love Islam because of all the benefits you get, don't you think I owe you something? This the messenger. All he sacrificed, he's still talking about he owe us something. So now look at us today. Don't we think we owe him something?
Yes, sir.
Don't we think we owe him enough to say he was the last and greatest messenger of Allah? Muslims don't even do that. Don't even show people up. This the messenger of Allah. He came, God raised him up for the black man. Just say that. We won't even say that. But J.A. Rogers, once again, another lost find. He recognized the greatness of the message.
Enjoying the show? Help keep us on the air. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033 to make a donation.
When you look at these niggas in IUIC, all these niggas do is try to shame the black man. They try to make the black man feel like they less than. When you look at them big, and that's why I don't got no love for this nigga IUIC. I see this week, this big fat pot-belly nigga in IUIC. He was standing in front of a liquor store. He saw a sister that walked, the liquor store was across the street. The sister, yes, she was half naked, just like the black man is in America. She half naked. So this big fat pot-belly IUIC nigga, he calls her over from across the street. So when the sister come over there, he baits her in. He started telling her about certain stuff to make her feel like, oh yeah, I believe that, I believe this and this and that. So then he said, if you found out, would you follow God? Some kind of way he got into the subject talking about following God. So she like, yeah, I'll follow God. So he went to a verse in the Bible that talks about sisters is supposed to be modest. So then he started browbeating this sister in front of all of these people, making her feel ashamed. Because every time they do this, you can look at the face on the look on the sister's face that they feel attacked. With all, and we sit as the name and let these niggas do that. All the love and care the messenger gave us when we was niggas in the mud. But you have a Muslim minister that took all the benefit the messenger gave and allowed this nigga to be dirty, have other dirty niggas out in the community harassing the 17 million rusty locks. That shows we don't appreciate the message. That's why the messenger, I always like to talk about hypocrites. He always taught us about hypocrites. Yeah. He said, Islam is not what you say. Islam is what you practice. Yes. You got a lot of brothers now who spend a whole lot of time in these social gatherings. Brothers going to baseball games. Brothers going to karaoke. Brothers out doing stuff with we do everything but defend the messenger. In the laborers' meeting, when the messenger was talking to his ministers, and this was in 64, he said, what time do you have to go to a ball game? What time do you have to sit around and listen to people tell lies? He said, we are at the door. He said, we right at the door. And he said, my people don't even know. We right at the door. And these 17 million are just as deaf, dumb, and blind and don't even realize all the good that's going on for their behalf. That's what the messenger told his ministers. He told them, your job as my follower is to help me to raise the dead. He told us it's only two camps. It's what I teach and it's what the devil teach. We don't have no leeway to act like in Islam we got friends. Ain't no friends. It ain't personal. Messenger said our very lives depend on Islam. He said ain't nobody come for the salvation of the black man but Allah in person. That's right. He said we had no help until the coming of Allah in person in the name of Master Farad Muhammad. Yes, sir. No help. No God. Black man believed in a mystery God. He believed in a spook. He believed in something that was going to come to him after physical death. But the messenger said God came. God came just like it was prophesied and predicted that he would come, seeking to save that which is lost. So the messenger told us he came alone. He needed nobody's help. This is why the messenger taught us we have a Savior's Day. Because God came alone. He came alone to seek and to save that which is lost. So the messenger said he found one from among the dead. He found one and raised him up to be his messenger, to teach us what he wanted us to know. Because the messenger said, he said, God and the devil cannot rule at the same time. So he said, God comes like a thief in the night. He comes without observation, and he raises up one. Think about that. God coming without observation, just for us. Because the messenger said Master Farad Muhammad was born to save the black man. All this teaching, if you believe that, how can you keep silent? This is the true and living God. The messenger made that clear. He is a living God. Yes. We believed in a mystery God, but the Bible talks about the true and living God. This is Master Farad Muhammad. Messenger said he came that we might have life more abundant. But we take what he said, make our life happy, then we forget about everybody else. Messenger said, you're not a Muslim until you want for your brother what you want for yourself. That's right. That's what you always got to remember when you're dealing with a Muslim. Because most of the time, when you look at hypocrites, they got the same characteristics of narcissists. Yes. That self-centered stuff. When the messenger gave us the characteristics of a hypocrite, all them characteristics seem like he talking about narcissists. That's why the messenger say, you ain't a Muslim until you want for your brother what you want for yourself. You don't want to be talked about, so you won't talk about your brother. You want the best for yourself, so you want the best for your brother. You appreciate what the messenger did for you, so you try to help your brother so he can appreciate the messenger too. That's a belief. You do it even if you all by yourself. Because the messenger said every tub sits on its own bottom. We got to always remember that. Every tub. Messenger was a plain one. We have nobody to blame. He came and gave us clear warning. He was a plain one. He said he made the truth so plain that even a fool can't hear. Well, brothers and sisters, we don't want to prolong the time. So I leave you as I came in the Nation of Islam's greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam.
Enjoying the show? Help keep us on the air. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033 to make a donation.
Brothers and sisters, we rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, sole master's day of judgment in which we now live. The alone do we serve, and the alone seek for thine help and aid. O Allah, please guide us on the right path, path of those upon whom thou bestow thy favors, not on the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray after they heard thy teachings. Say he, Allah is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten, there is none like him. And I bear witness that none is there to be served worth the praise besides Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, thy true servant and last apostle. Ameen. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us not to do anything to anyone that we wouldn't have done it to ourselves, and treat everybody right, even the devil. Assalamu alaikum.